G'day folks, welcome back to Pete's Investing. It's April 3rd, 2024. This is the market update for the SP 500, the NASDAQ, the GermanDax and the Japanese Nikkei. Now the markets have gone pretty much south on all of them. The S&P has gone sideways slightly since the last update. And if we look at our heat map, you can see there on the bottom left, you got the US market pretty much still long on the monthly and weekly, although short on the daily. Likewise, the GermanDax, the Japanese and the NASDAQ have turned neutral on the weekly, and they're all showing short positioning on the daily time frame. First, looking at the S&P 500, you can see on our daily chart, it's been in this nice long trend to the upside, and I've drawn this trend line here, this ascending trend line on the daily, and that also shows up on the hourly chart as well. Now you'll notice the CCI 150 on the daily is trending down as opposed to the price chart, and that's a bearish divergence. So as I keep saying, we expect to see this break eventually to the downside. Now it's made a slight break below that trend line. So what does that look like on the hourly? Well, you can see here I've got this stochastic market forecast 1600 in the very much overbought territory, and you can see there if I zoom in, it's broken down past the 90. Nothing too dramatic yet, although it's making a bit of a downturn, again breaking below this price trend line. Also, if I zoom in on the hourly, I've got the CCI 150 showing another bearish divergence in a smaller time frame, and that's actually broken down. This could actually keep rising, of course. There's no guarantee it's going to continue to fall, but at the moment it's actually fallen off and hit our initial target area. And there were a few bearish divergences back here, which I've highlighted. Now on the daily again, the ADX 25 is broken, showing a very fresh short positioning. So again, on the daily, we're broken short, but on the weekly and monthly, we're still long positioning. And on the stochastic market forecast here, it's still in the overbought territory on the daily. So just be careful about going short anytime yet until we see the hourly especially break closer to this 50 level. The NASDAQ has got a similar sort of pattern to the S&P, although it's a lot more volatile in its retraces. And I've drawn another trend line here. You can see that it's quite a way off from that trend line, although it's bouncing off that key resistance up there at 18,465. The CCI 150 is also showing a bearish divergence versus the price chart, and our ADX 25 is also broken freshly up in a bearish momentum. The stochastic market forecast down here is also very much overbought and no sign yet of a pullback. On the hourly, likewise, you can see the relationship between that rising trend line bouncing off that resistance line as well. And the stochastic market forecast is, again, overbought, making a bit of a retrace to the downside again. Nothing too dramatic yet, but we need to see it break much lower to this 50 level to be more bearish. Also, if I zoom in, you can see we've had a few bearish divergence on the CCI 150, and currently that is trending in line with the price action as well. The Nikkei is showing a pullback as well, although it's a lot steeper in its price action. I've got two trend lines here. This steep trend line, it's actually broken through that first one, and it may actually fall back towards this lower level here downstairs. On the resistance, it's bounced off that resistance of the key area at 41,163. The CCI 150 is showing a bearish movement as opposed to the price action, so it's a bearish divergence, and that looks like it's actually playing out at the moment. The ADX is also freshly bearish, and the stochastic market forecast is still very much overbought on the daily chart. On the hourly, it's actually broken down past the 90 level and approaching the 75 level of that indicator. The CCI 150 has had a few bearish divergence, you can see there, versus the price chart, and each one of those pulled back and successfully hit our initial targets. At the moment, this could be a bullish divergence. If I draw a trend line, you can see there pretty much a double bottom on the lows of the CCI 150 versus lower lows on the price chart. That's a bullish divergence, so we may expect it to see bounce in the coming hours. Next, we've got the GermanDax. So on the daily, first off, you can see there it's bouncing off that resistance at 18,602 and approaching this ascending trend line. The CCI 150 is also showing a bearish divergence versus the price action. We may be seeing the start of that happening at the moment. The ADX hasn't broken to a bearish momentum yet. It's still bullish, but again, based on this price CCI action, we may see it starting to break to the downside and breaking up to a short positioning soon. The stochastic is still very much overbought down here. On the hourly chart, I've got two diagonal ascending trend lines. It's actually just almost reaching this first one here, and we've got a secondary level there, which again, if it breaks through there, that'll be our next level of minor support. We did have a few bearish divergence which played out and hit our targets along the way, similar to the other markets on the CCI 150. And on the stochastic indicator here, you can see that it's broken down quite steeply in the last few hours, and it's broken down through the 90 level and approaching 75 as well. This is an indicator which I drew up, which is a combination of the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Nikkei, and the DAX. So it's a combination index, if you like. But again, that's bouncing off this major resistance up there, and it's now turning to the downside according to the CCI 150. We did have a double top here on the CCI 150, which is a bearish divergence considering the price action. So the price was accelerating from there, whereas the CCI 150 down here on this combined indicator is showing a double top. So we may see it pull back somewhere in this area here. The ADX is also showing a bearish momentum overall, and the stochastic market forecast indicator is very much overbought. It did pull back during that period for the four markets combined, but it's currently overbought. On the hourly chart, similarly, overbought on the stochastic market forecast indicator, and we're seeing the CCI 150 as well, with another bearish divergence on the hourly as well. So basically, we're looking at a potential retrace at the very minimum. I'm not saying it's going to be a crash, but it could be at least a minimum retrace to the downside along these four markets. To support us more, go to the Patreon page for Pete's Investing, where we also do weekly scans of blue chip shares that are trending along on a longer and medium term timeframes. Feel free to support us there, and we'll see you in a future video.